What's going on, all you awesome superhero aficionados? This is the Heroes and Mutants podcast. I'm Nick with my co-hosts Jimmy, Eric, and Ruben. What's going on today, guys? How's everybody doing? It's been a minute since we've all been together, so you guys all hanging in there?
Yeah, doing good.
Yep.
Yeah. Ruben over here looking like Jonah Hex. He's a little late on the Halloween, so he's like, okay, I'm just gonna go full force and do it right now. Hope they don't notice.
Full send.
Cowboy every day. That's why they call me Woody.
Exactly. So we got a lot. Keep going, my bad.
I just want to say, I actually rewatched the Batman the Animated Series episode with Jonah Hex a few days ago.
I forgot that was even a thing.
Yeah, with
definitely.
Ra's al Ghul telling a story about the frontier times and fighting Jonah Hex. It's an interesting episode.
Pretty interesting. I mean, I think most people don't remember this, but Josh Brolin and Megan Fox were in a Jonah Hex movie in 2010 that everybody just needs to forget.
They choose to forget. I think people know.
They choose
to forget.
Definitely. I think that'd be more. I think that would be what is best for all parties to just forget that it ever happened. But there's a lot of stuff that we got to go over today, a lot of updates and new information that came out, and so it's going to be a little bit long, but because we haven't really reported on it. First thing we're going to get to is a lot of casting news that was released recently, and the first one is Gael Garcia Bernal. The Mexican actor has recently been cast as Werewolf by Night in the Disney Plus Halloween special that's coming in 2022. There's been two incarnations of Werewolf by Night. There was a Jack Russell, which was the original version, and then last year, actually interesting, Taboo from the Black Eyed Peas helped to co-create this character, the Jake Gomez version, that he's only been around about a year since last year. So I feel people are speculating on whether he's going to be the Jack Russell version or the Jake Gomez, because the thing about Jake Gomez is this is a 17-year-old kid. So I don't think they're going to go that route. Maybe they can do, because Jake Gomez is also a Native American. So I'm wondering if they're going to just do an original character created specifically for this universe, or if they're going to try to go the route of the comics. I don't see him being Jack Russell, although I think he could be. What do you guys think?
I don't know, but I'm glad he's going to be in here. It's hard to know which version he's going to be, but I think he'll be a good addition to the MCU.
Yeah, I think regardless it's going to be good, and because it's the MCU, they're going to do their own spin on the character anyway, regardless of who he plays.
Well, especially a character like this, because he's pretty obscure, and not a lot of people really know that that werewolves exist in the MCU. So I think people obviously know vampires and barely coming to like, oh, okay, like vampires are going to be in here, but like, wait, they have werewolves too? Like a werewolf exists in the MCU? So I feel like this is a good character to kind of take a lot of creative liberties and do their own spin, do whatever they kind of want to do, and have it change from what it was in the comics and not have fans be in uproar about it. But this is a great inclusion. I remember even thinking to myself when they were casting, the casting sheet called for a Mexican actor, an actor of Latino, well, not Mexican, but an actor of Latino descent. And I was just like, I'm thinking like one of the more popular Latino actors is Diego Luna. So I kind of was like, maybe they'll go the route of Diego Luna. It's actually kind of funny because one of his like close classmates, or a lot of the one, like I think of Ito Mama Tambien. So it's actually really funny that he actually got cast in this role, which is a great film, by the way. You guys should check it out if you haven't. So, I'm sorry.
Then they play best friends.
Exactly. So I feel like and they're seen as close friends in Mexican cinema, and like two of the best Mexican actors around right now. So definitely great inclusion. Can't wait to see this for next year. Yep, we'll let you guys know of more casting updates coming soon. Some of the bigger news also has been Will Poulter has been cast as Adam Warlock in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Is this a good choice for such an important character?
Yeah, I think that he is a really good actor. I think he's gotten better over the years in movies that I've seen. I know most people could associate. What's that movie? We Are the Millers.
Yeah.
I think that's what he's known for. Yeah, but check out Detroit and Midsummer. I think that shows that he's actually more than just like a goofy kid actor. He's kind of grown a lot as an actor, so I can actually see him really being kind of like a hero character in this.
Yeah, he was actually the original choice for it. I think Carrey Fukunaga was when he was directing it, and he was his original choice. And then obviously Andy Muschietti took on the role, and then that was he had already said from the beginning, oh well, this is not. I was specifically cast for the other version, so I felt like I already knew that there was going to be another role for him on the horizon that's soon to come, and it seems like this is the one.
Yeah, actually, I really like that he has that comedic background. Just because when we're talking about Adam Warlock, we've already seen him teased with Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Like he's already twice, I guess, in Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2, he was teased. So we were gonna get Adam Warlock anyway. Guardians is obviously one of the more comedic franchises in the MCU. So the fact that he has that comedic background, I think is gonna be a plus. And yes, he's a great actor. I think he's gonna do good as Adam Warlock. I think it's gonna be one of those characters that almost might take themselves too seriously within the context of the movie, but it's going to play out as something really funny and really awesome to watch and enjoy.
Yeah, most definitely. I feel like this is going to be his first major role. You know what I'm saying? I feel like, I'm not if it's not saying major role, but I feel like, I guess, in including character or something when it comes to the MCU or Marvel, you know, you have people have expectations, and I feel like he may fit the role cool. Like I said, he does have, you know, his resume and all that. And not only that, I feel like he has the look too, you know. He's gonna portray that role good. I feel like he's gonna portray that role good. It's something different for him, different for us maybe. But that's what the MCU is all about, baby. Marvel takes those risks. He's
kind of quirky too as an actor, and I think that kind of fits with the Guardians of the Galaxy, like the whole personality of that team and everything.
Yeah, definitely. That's how I was gonna agree with y'all and all that. So I was just like, I'm gonna hit him with the different aspects about it.
Yeah, definitely a good choice. Someone who's done, like Jimmy had said, some great work, and especially for someone like Adam Warlock, he's been a pretty important character in the comics, and now we're gonna be. I do feel like this is a little bit of a late inclusion when he was first teased in the very beginning in Guardians 1, but then Guardians 2, obviously they had that he was gonna come very soon, and that was already. 4 years ago? I assumed that he was gonna maybe he was gonna be around for Endgame, especially just because of the importance that he had in Infinity Gauntlet in the comics. So I do feel like this is a little bit of a late inclusion, and I feel also he's probably gonna have a small role because when he was casted, the announcement of his casting came after the wrapping of Guardians 3. So I feel like it's probably gonna be a small role for him. And something that's going to build towards the future. And moving on from that, it's another casting update that we have. Bill Murray has been cast in a secret role in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and he didn't actually fully reveal that he was in that movie. He had just said that he was working with Peyton List, the director, obviously. So, any guesses who he could be?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm trying to think off the top of my head who he could be. Mephisto. I don't know.
I don't know. That's an example of where the MCU is kind of moving towards like they're bringing that comedic aspect to everything they're bringing out lately. Because with these superheroes, it's getting pretty. People are losing their lives. Superheroes are losing their lives. So there's gonna be that dark aspect, but I guess they're trying to bring. They're trying to soften the blow a little bit by making people laugh.
I mean,
could be.
Bill Murray is not always, but for the most part, he's pretty comedic and kind of quirky. I hate to use that word, but I imagine it's going to be a funny role. I mean, even if he's a villain, there's going to be like an element of humor to it. It's not whatever he's doing is not going to be 100% serious.
Yeah, I really can't see him in any kind of really villainous capacity. I feel like there's just because of the way he is, and like I said, Jimmy, there's a lot of quirks about him. I feel like
villains could.
I don't know. I don't even really.
Villains could be quirky.
Oh, I'm not saying that they can't.
Yeah, but you're not going to see this guy playing like Doctor Doom. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Or Galactus or something like that. Like, I think this is probably just a cool little nod to someone who's had a long storied career in cinema, and I think it's going to be something very small. I don't really think it's going to be something that's going to have major ramifications or something that is really going to be pushing towards in the future, someone who's going to have a huge arc. I feel like it's just going to be
comics, and he just wants to have a little role some way somehow.
So I think this is pretty cool. We're Bill Murray because it's Bill Murray. So, and last bit of casting updates is Jim Carrey is rumored to, well, this isn't exactly an update, but it's a rumor, obviously. But Jim Carrey is rumored to be in talks to play MODOK. Would you guys like to see Carrey in the MCU, and can he pull off a character like MODOK?
Yes, I think he can.
He can pull off MODOK. He definitely can.
I think I know Eric's what Eric's gonna say about that, but we'll keep going, Jimmy.
I want to hear. What were you gonna say, Eric?
I wasn't gonna say anything.
Oh, okay.
I thought you had said that you did. What about seeing Jim Carrey in the MCU? Is that something you could see?
I could see it. I think it's a bit much to have Jim Carrey as MODOK, just because we've already had a version of MODOK, and even in the Hulu series, the MODOK series. Like we have Patton Oswalt, and I think he's actually doing a really good job with it already. Like I don't think it's necessary to bring in Jim Carrey just for that. But I mean, Jim Carrey can play anyone he really sets his sight on.
Definitely.
I think that I get it, but I mean that's still like an animated series that takes place outside the MCU. I think the casting might have been influenced by Patton Oswalt because you're bringing in somebody who's known for comedic purposes mostly to play like an egomaniacal supervillain.
Or live action.
Yeah, for a live action version. I think he could see it because like, dude, Jim Carrey's funny, and I think in comic book like cinema, most people think of him as the Riddler in Batman Forever, which is probably
But it was an alright version, you know?
I mean, he's probably one of the most entertaining things about that movie. Whether it's the most faithful is a whole other thing. But I think he's a good serious actor when he wants to be, like in like movies like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I think if he mixes some of that serious with his quirkiness, kind of that quirkiness might be good for somebody as egomaniacal as MODOK. So I could see it.
Yeah, I think something he does have going for him is the fact that he makes the character his own regardless. So I had a problem with him being cast as Eggman or Dr. Robotnik in the Sonic movie.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Originally, I'm like, he's not going to fit the part. He doesn't look right. It's going to be weird. But after watching the movie several times, because my son loves the movie, I actually like him in that role. And I think he obviously made it his own, but he pays homage to who that character was in the video games. So I think he'll do right by the character in the movie as well if he does play MODOK. And we've seen him as a superhero in the past, right? We saw him in Kick-Ass 2.
That's true.
Yeah.
Right? And he played that character great. It was amazing. So I think it was what's it, the Patriot? That was his name?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So I think he did that really well. He gave his own
talking about Kick-Ass, right?
Kick-Ass 2, yeah.
Yeah.
Colonel Stars and Stripes.
There you go. Stars and Stripes, yeah. So I think he played that to perfection, and it was really, really cool to see him in a superhero role. So I think he'll be able to fit into any comic book movie, really.
Yeah.
And MODOK would make sense.
Sure. That's the thing about Jim Carrey, bro. He, like you say, like he'll make the character his own, but that's the thing about him nowadays, because back then, and he's admitted it already, you know, nowadays, I guess I should say, he won't take a role unless he's really committed to it, or he feels he could have, like, he doesn't have strings attached to him, you know. He has that freedom to do what he wants to do. And like Eric said, you know, he wants to pay that homage to who the character really is. And now that it's going to be live action, you know, like you said with the Sonic, who knows? I have faith in him for sure. He's one of my favorite, you know, actors, and especially when it comes to comedic stuff. Mm-hmm. So I feel like he could pull it off.
Yeah. Definitely. And I think someone like MODOK, he can I think what I'm a little bit concerned with is that they're going to go that route, not completely, but have some kind of influence from what the Hulu series was. And I would like to see evil, crazed, maniacal MODOK, and not a somewhat parody version, which I don't think that they'll do. But if they're going to be casting Jim Carrey, obviously most people know him for his comedic abilities. I feel like that's going to be somewhat of a thing that they're going to be internalizing for this character. So I feel like, yeah, I do feel like he's a good choice, though, and he could do a bit of a darker take on the character, but I don't know if that's what they would want to do.
Yeah,
but still a good choice. And we don't know for sure. This could just be something that we're just speculating on because it could turn out not to be true. So good choice. I would like to see him in the MCU, and we'll let you guys know when that happens. And also, it's been revealed that James Gunn said that in the Guardians Christmas special, he will be introducing he will be introducing one of the greatest MCU characters of all time. Who do you guys think that could be?
Santa Claus, dude. It has to be Santa.
It has to, dude. It has to.
I mean, in the comic books, Santa is Nexus level mutant in the comic books. So the fact that he's
in Omega
talking about it, and it's James Gunn, he's gonna bring something ridiculous like that anyway, right?
And just saying a Christmas special too, you know what I'm saying? Is like, who else would it be? Who else could you expect it to be?
I'm with you guys. It's probably Santa Claus, and because it's so damn absurd and ridiculous, that's exactly why it's probably going to be that. We've seen the Guardians of the Galaxy movies and the Suicide Squad, and even his other stuff. He likes ridiculous, over the top stuff. He likes things that are wild and attention grabbing and funny and silly. Or so it's probably definitely going to be that.
Yeah, definitely. And moving on from that, we recently too, Wakanda Forever has been postponed from filming because of injuries suffered by Shuri actress Letitia Wright. Hopefully everything is good and filming can resume pretty soon. And one of the coolest things that's happened recently has been Morbius getting a brand new trailer. And I'm pretty sure we're probably not going to be seeing any more delays from its January release, like what was earlier reported. Do you guys have more faith in it with what we've seen so far? And does it seem like it's playing off the multiverse by incorporating elements from the 3 different Spider-Man film series?
I think this is going to be good, but I think here's the thing. I think some fans, the way that we're speculating about how it's going to turn out and whether or not Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are actually going to be in it, it's kind of long to go this deep into it when it's this close and not to announce it. I mean, you never know, but I feel like some people might, if they're not in it, some fans are going to be pissed off, and I think it's important to not set false expectations. And I think Kevin Feige had even said something recently about, like, I'm afraid of people over expecting like you know, everything from all these universes to come and then being disappointed on the movie, because he said, I'm not going to say which, but some of the fan speculation is real, is going to be confirmed. A lot of it is not. So it's hard to say. I know it's going to have to.
Well, it's funny how you say that though, because a lot of it has been right. My bad.
Yeah, a lot of it has been right, but we'll see though. I mean, it would be cool to see it, but I don't want to go in thinking I'm going to see Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield again and be disappointed. I'm just happy that it's going to be interesting as it is to be incorporating different universes. So we'll see how it plays out.
Well, what about for this film, though? Does it give you a little bit more faith in it with Morbius?
A little bit. I mean, possibly, but I don't know if that really means that's going to be that.
Well, we already know the way the MCU is moving forward, especially with the multiverse, you know? So I feel like with Morbius, it's just another way of Sony bringing in their characters into the mix, especially with the multiverse. Because I already know the way it's all going to move, man. All these movies are going to cross over as long as the beef between Disney and Sony doesn't keep aggravating itself. But that's a whole different topic. It's gonna work out. I think it's gonna work out. I just don't know how. I just don't know why they kind of throw us off when it comes to that Morbius. You know, like you said, Nick, how they basically gave us a glimpse of the 3 different Spider-Mans in one trailer. So I'm like, what universe is it in? Does this will have his own, like, you know, like could he jump time? I don't know. Could he jump multiverses?
I think it could just be them like screwing with us a little bit.
That's
by
right.
Incorporating those different elements. So I think the weird thing was that fact that they name dropped Venom, because nobody had known what Venom's name was up until this point, unless you were a close associate or confident of Venom. So I felt that was a little bit weird how he would know. So I'm like, is this just public knowledge now, or maybe because of with with the merging of the MCU and that Sony universe, like maybe now he's going around and everybody knows Venom. I don't know. There's so much speculation and questions that I have about
So many
what's
questions.
going to happen with this going forward. But what about you, Eric? What do you think about everything?
What I think about it, I don't know. They definitely gave all 3 Spider-Man. Actually, they even teased the video game Spider-Man, if you guys caught that.
I did.
Yeah. So I think there's a problem with managing expectations, definitely, that's going to happen in the MCU, between MCU and Sony, especially with Tom Holland talking about his contract coming to an end and being at the end of an era and all that. And I think it's just Sony kind of starting their own almost Spider-Verse, not necessarily part of the MCU. I think they're just doing their own thing. And I don't think it's all part of the MCU. I really don't think it is. I don't think we're going to see Venom or Morbius in the MCU anytime soon, even though in the Venom end credits, I know we saw Tom Holland. But still, I think they're just going to try to separate themselves as much from MCU because Disney has too much power for Sony to handle.
Of course.
And they're going to have to try to do their own thing for a while.
I don't know. I mean, look, Spider-Man is I mean, that's a cliche to say. He's my favorite Marvel character. Tom Holland talking about it. I've been hearing the interviews with him where he's talking about this being the end of an era. I kind of feel like this version of Spider-Man never developed fully into Spider-Man, even though I've really liked the movies. Because first he feels like he's fighting Tony Stark's leftover villains. I feel like that's what they turned him into. And I think the fact that there's a little part of me that's skeptical because the villains in this new one, where there's Doc Ock played by a different Doc Ock, I mean, what's great about that is the relationship between that Peter Parker and his villains. It doesn't seem like they're working very hard to connect Peter Parker to his villains the way I think he does in the comic books. Tom Holland, like, speaking about this being an end of an era, I'm like, it just never felt like Spider-Man became what Spider-Man was supposed to be in the Marvel universe, if that's true, and if Sony's just
because I mean, you can definitely, with that in mind, you can definitely say that, and it would be an easy connection to say that that Vulture and Mysterio were essentially more Iron Man villains because those, like, his actions were more what drove them to villainy and to resort to the tactics that they did. So when you think about it, when you say it out loud, you're like, wait a minute, these guys are more Iron Man villains.
Yeah, they're more Iron Man villains. And then the fact that the new Doc Ock is not going to be connected even to this Peter Parker or have that kind of relationship is kind of, I get why it's exciting to, like, see it again, but there's a part of me that questions if that's actually the right route for the story, if that's really good.
Bro, that's what I'm saying. I do believe Tobey Maguire is going to come out in the movie.
We'll see how it develops.
That's why these blank spots are there on purpose. They got to be filled in, and I think they're going to be filled in during the movie.
But getting back to Morbius, though, it does look better. I do have more faith in it, and it was cool. We actually got some more extended shots of what he looks like as Morbius. So I do have faith in it going forward. We'll see. I really want to get him. I hope what Eric had, his theory about what he had said about the future, that it's not going to happen immediately. I hope we end up seeing stuff like that. I really want to see a Midnight Suns, obviously. So we'll see what happens as that develops. And it's also rumored that Marvel Studios is going to be developing a Thunderbolts movie with current events in the MCU storyline dropping little hints that could be leading to a Thunderbolts movie in Phase 4. Hopefully that's something that they've been building up to for a minute. We'll see how that happens in the future. Also, too, something that was interesting was a Hellboy TV series might be in the works with producer Jeffrey Greenstein, playing with the idea that he believes, quote, there are lots of opportunities with it. Although I don't know if this is exactly what people want, especially after the disaster was that reboot with David Harbour in 2019, just because of given how iconic Guillermo del Toro's 2 movies were and just how perfect Ron Perlman was for that role. I don't really think this is something that I would want to see. As much as I love Hellboy, and we talk a lot about showing, as you know, that's Dark Horse Comics and something that's not Marvel, that's not DC, and having other characters really have the spotlight. He was there before Iron Man, before this current inclusion of the MCU. We had 2 Hellboy movies, but I'm not in the rush to see this, just because if someone has to come with a great vision like Guillermo del Toro did, and I don't see that happening. So we'll see as that develops. And nextly, Black Adam producer promises a very high kill count, even though it's a PG-13 movie, saying that I'm assuming it's going to be a hard PG-13 rating. And that must mean the deaths won't be super violent, but it'll be faithful to Black Adam's character. DCU EU producer Hiram Garcia has confirmed there are multiple Black Adam spin-offs in development, with announcements coming soon. More sounds like it'll be Hawkman or Dr. Fate, most likely. And last but not least, according to Daniel RPK, the upcoming Penguin HBO Max series will star Colin Farrell reprising his role from the Batman, and it's going to start filming in the middle of 2022. So hopefully that turns out to be true, because I know there was a lot of speculation that it could be a younger incarnation of the character, because if it's not going to have Colin Farrell, that's just the only route that they're going to have to go. So awesome stuff in development. We'll let you guys know as things develop. And if you guys want to be up to date with current comic book superhero news, make sure you guys follow us on Heroes and Mutants Podcast, at Heroes and Mutants Podcast on IG, to be up to date with all of your superhero needs and all of your superhero info. So we wanted to get now to the main topic. The Eternals just came out a few days ago, and there's been a lot of mixed reviews, to say the least. But overall, just first takes, what did you guys think of this movie? What did you guys like about it?
Okay, all right. I understand what people don't like about it, and I kind of get it. And I think this is like the worst reviewed Marvel movie so far, which I find pretty interesting, because I actually think that this is not even close to being like even the bottom of like MCU movies.
That's the list. Yeah.
That were more well reviewed, that were not as good as this.
Dark World.
Yeah.
That definitely comes to mind, obviously.
I would say Iron Man 2 as well. I mean, there's a good handful of them. So I get what people's complaints are, but I kind of liked it. I think the pacing could have been a little bit better in spots, and I think occasionally the cast doesn't have as much chemistry as they should have. Occasionally, I think that's a little bit of an issue. But
only when they're fighting.
Yeah. I also think it's probably one of the best looking MCU movies. I think it's
without a doubt
beautiful, for one, the way that it was shot and what Chloe Zhao brings to it. And I like the ideas that it's wrestling with. It's going for some pretty big or deep ideas. The idea of that, how, religion is like a very powerful thing, and we all have our different belief systems. But this movie is about, if you knew for a fact that God exists, like you knew and you've met him and you spoke to him, and having a certain type of purpose in life, and then realizing that you've been lied to your entire life, or that your purpose is not what you thought it was, that your history isn't real, that your memories aren't real, what that would mean to you as a powerful being who always believed that they were doing the right thing, to realize that over thousands of years you could have done better by humanity instead of letting all these tragic things happen and all these accidents. It really wrestles with like big questions of your purpose in life, what we're doing here, why. I find it very interesting that like the Eternals are all very diverse, and they're all very different. You have white characters, Pakistani characters, black characters, Asian characters, Latinas or Latino, whatever you want to call it, LGBT.
Deaf characters.
You even had a mute character.
Yeah, mute character, LGBTQ character. Like it kind of like shows like they all wrestle with the idea. Even one who's stuck in a certain age where they want to like experience life the way that the other Eternals get to, but she can't because she's stuck as kind of a little girl. So it wrestles with a lot of questions that a lot of people probably ask themselves on a regular basis in real life. Like, why am I the way that I am? Why am I deaf? Why am I gay? Why am I black in a world that's full of racism? So I think it wrestles with pretty big ideas that a lot of superhero movies don't really tackle. And I kind of like that about it. I thought that was an interesting take on superhero lore and Marvel lore, and I think there was a lot more to it. Granted, I think it could have been paced better, but I think when you're wrestling with such big ideas, you have to do a little bit more of like grounding and character work before you can get to like the big spectacle that everybody wants to see. So I don't think it's perfect. I think it has flaws, but I think it's very interesting and kind of beautiful. And overall, I dug it. It's not a perfect movie, but I think it's a unique movie within the MCU in terms of what it's trying to do and what it's trying to say. So I like it. I like the variation.
Yeah. going into it, because I didn't really know so much about the Eternals. That was their, I would say, probably considered C-list characters in the MCU. I mean, it was pretty baffling for me to realize that they've only had 5 issues of comics since 1976. That was pretty stark contrast to some of the more popular characters that we've seen and that we've experienced in the
Jack
MCU.
Kirby's first story.
And then Jack Kirby created these characters. So huge shout out to Jack the King Kirby. If you guys don't know Jack Kirby, you gotta know. He's helped some really define what comics are and has helped create some of the best, most well-known characters of all time. So Jack the King Kirby, make sure you guys check him out. So, and I found it was interesting knowing some of that history because he created the Eternals when he left Marvel, went to DC to start on the New Gods, and then that went unfinished. That was canceled. So he went back to Marvel and helped create he did create, actually. He's created the Eternals by himself. So I felt like there was a lot of parallels between the New Gods and the Eternals, and a lot of that was very obvious to see. So a lot of that history was pretty cool. And with this film, what I liked is that it seemed to really want to take risk and it wanted to do something different. I think that really goes to show the visionary that Chloe Zhao is. But, I think off the top of my head, this is the first time we've actually had a sex scene in an MCU film. So the movie really was trying to be bold and really trying to take a bunch of risks. I don't know if those exactly hammered home to where they were. Like a lot of the meta references towards Batman and Superman, this is the first time we've had those kind of references in any kind of movies. I don't know if they were exactly hammering home the point. I don't know if they exactly had to be there, but I really appreciate that this movie was trying to take risks as it could. The film, just as Jimmy had said, the visuals look awesome. They look really beautiful. And I mean, even to go to the fact that even Kevin Feige was like, wow, I had no idea we can do on-set location shooting, that we could do more practical effects. We don't have to have everything be a CGI fest. Like, wow, this is amazing. This is something brand new that I had no idea about. And what about you, Eric and Ruben? What did you guys like about this film?
Well, me for sure, I ain't gonna lie, I did like it. It did have its, good points. It did have its bad points, but it's like both of y'all were saying, Jimmy, Nick, how it's taking his risks. And that's the beauty of it, because obviously it's going to be controversial. Everything that it was going to do is controversial. And I believe that's why it maybe had that B rating, that's why it was one of the lowest, wait, yeah, I'm talking about Eternal. Yeah, the Eternal. Yeah, I had a little, but yeah, no, I feel like this is why it's taking its risk, and that's why I had a little low grading, because this is something Chloe is smart, because it's only his first film. And the Eternals aren't going nowhere. They're still here to come. If I'm not doing any spoilers yet, but they're still, they're still gonna be around for a while and all that stuff. So this is a risk she took with the film, and whether it was gonna be a hate or love kind of thing from the fans or Hollywood, whatever, all around the world, it's only the first film. Mm-hmm. You could only go up from here, and if you go down, then you're doing something wrong. But I feel like the Eternals could go up from here, especially with all the controversial stuff going on right now.
Yeah. What about you, Eric?
I think I'm kind of gonna go off what Ruben was saying with Chloe Zhao. I think Chloe knew exactly what she was doing with this movie, and she wanted to tell a different kind of superhero story. And I think it's a disservice to a lot of these movies that they're all put under the umbrella of superhero movies, because you have different subgenres within these movies, regardless of what it is. Iron Man isn't just a superhero movie, it's a sci-fi movie. The Thor movies are fantasy movies. They're not just superhero movies. And I think this is more of an introspective drama than it is a superhero movie. Mm-hmm. And when you look at her other work that she won Oscars for, Nomadland, that is literally a story of just telling the story of a person and what they're going through and the type of people in the Americas and what they go through. And I think that's what the Eternals was. It was a story to tell these characters, their stories, who they are, kind of plant them in the MCU. So it's more of a introspective story and things that they go through. And it goes really deep into what their emotions are and like what they're feeling and what their purpose is. And I think that's why it was so important to have this movie in the MCU, because it's so different than any other MCU movie. And that's what I really liked about it. Like the whole 2.5+ hours that I was in theater, I was there to learn more about the Eternals, and I feel like I came out getting to know them really well, of what they've been through, and even like especially with like Fastos, I think his character had such a cool arc in seeing him actually embrace humanity and have his own son and have his partner. And I thought that was really cool to see him actually go through that, and in the end still have to go back to what not only his purpose was, but what he is intending to do to save what he has, to not lose what he has created. So and I think also going back to what Jimmy said, the whole like almost like religious aspect of it, I thought it was really cool when I think it was Kumail's character Kingo.
Yeah, Kingo.
Yeah.
When Kingo says, I believe that we need to do what we were meant to do, but I'm not going to fight you for my beliefs. I thought that was really interesting because you see different aspects of it, and they all had the same purpose originally, but now some of them are like, no, we have to go through with it. And then you have Icarus, who's like the one extreme, is like, no, we're going to get this done. Then you have the other extreme, like we have to stop it, and that's Cersei. But then you still have Kingo, the character that's in the middle, is like, no, I believe that Icarus is right, but I'm not going to fight my family for my beliefs. Exactly. And I think that was really cool to see. And I feel like you don't really see that a lot.
And it's basically just saying everyone has their own beliefs.
Yeah.
You know, you shouldn't go against someone even though you love them, or especially hurt them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It was really, I just thought it was really cool to see. Like Kingo wasn't put as like a bad guy for that at all. Right? Like even though technically, I guess there wasn't really like a bad guy. You can argue that Icarus was the bad guy in this movie, but I think that's a problem that a lot of critics had with this movie, is they're expecting a superhero movie. They're expecting Batman versus the Joker. They're expecting Iron Man versus whoever, Whiplash or whoever he's fighting up against. They're expecting a very like a common enemy. Whereas in this one, there is no common enemy. It's all every single character for themselves needs to decide what they believe is true and right. And I think that's why it culminates to something very different than your typical superhero movie.
I also think what's interesting about this is how your outlook on life, whether you're a pessimistic person, if you're cynical, if you're positive and optimistic, you're going to take away different things from the message of this movie depending on what your viewpoint is, who you agree with, who you align with. Because I don't think it's as clear cut as it is in most superhero films, where a lot of them where you know like who to cheer for and who to root for. I think it just, I don't know, just challenge you to think about what the right thing is.
Well, I don't think about challenging. I think you just got to come in open-minded to this kind of film. Because, you know, people are going to be, you know, people are naive. People have their beliefs. People see things a certain way. But this is kind of film where people are either, if they're not naive about it, you're going to have to question your beliefs sometimes. Like, this is the kind of film where it's going to question, you're going to have to question your belief, without a doubt. We're like, you know, because there's a lot of, you know, religions where, like, you know, they don't like that, you know, the LGBT, you know, Q community, and they believe, you know, good and bad, and they twist the Bible terms sometimes, and you gotta admit that, you know, like, you know, they for good and evil sometimes. I'm like, this is a film where you gotta come in open-minded, and then we also kind of know the fact that we have our first MCU Superman.
Oh yeah,
First MCU.
I think some of the ideas in here, though, one thing I do want to expand upon is, I mean, it's an interesting idea of the concept of you being a powerful human being that was, well, not really human beings, they're Eternals, but I mean, they're kind of like humans, but you having this great purpose in life, that you have all that, and questioning whether or not you could have what you're doing is actually the right thing for humanity. Like, it does seem like it was Druid, right, who was talking about how frustrating and how tiring it is to know century after century to see human beings killing each other, to see all these disasters and these fallouts, knowing that you could reach out to help and like put an end to it, but being forced to let all of these tragedies and these atrocities play out. So that means the Eternals were around during slavery. They were around during every major war. They were around during the
from the beginning of time, basically.
Yeah. So it's what that would do to a person who wants to do good, but is forced or kind of fighting between what they believe is right and what they've always been told is right, and what their purpose is. And and I don't think that's what a lot of people want to see in a superhero movie. It's what I want to see in a superhero movie, only because I think what I try to like remind people of this is that comic books themselves have a really wide modes of storytelling, and they're not as straightforward as the movies are. I feel like comic books themselves approach much more complex storytelling ideas, and they have more chances of characters to wrestle with who they are and what their purpose in life is.
That's very true. And it all comes down to one thing, though. My bad, Jimmy. All comes down to choice, though. Mm-hmm. Down to one thing. Yes. That person, individual, has a choice what they want to do good or do bad.
Right, exactly. So now we talked about some of the things that we liked about it. Let's just get to some criticisms, some flaws and shortcomings of this film. The main thing that Jimmy had touched upon this earlier was the pacing. The pacing just felt very weird. I don't really think they had to include so many flashbacks to the past. I felt like a lot of that really could have just been cut down. And another thing too was, if you guys had seen the trailer, then you knew from the very beginning that Icarus was there when he was talking to Ajax about Thanos and about the emergence and all of that. So the fact that I felt like that was the way that the trailer had made it was that was gonna be somewhere in the beginning of the film, and it wasn't revealed all of that till like right along the third act or the beginning of the third act. And so from the very beginning, when that didn't happen, I was thinking to myself, I was like, so wait a minute, Icarus knows about all of this. So is Icarus the bad guy? Like, is Icarus is he stalling for all this to happen? So I just knew right away and was quickly able to put two and two together. So I just felt like that really, that trailer ruined it, because we had already known what was going to happen, and we knew that Icarus had known about this all
along. I didn't feel that way with that trailer.
I didn't remember that. I didn't remember that from the trailer.
I remember that specifically.
I do remember.
I forgot about it
until you mentioned it. I didn't feel that way where I felt like it ruined it.
Well, I ruined it for me.
Yeah. Well, I actually, even though I did not remember that, I from the very beginning thought that wasn't it Richard Madden's character was gonna be evil, and I don't know why. I just thought like this guy, there's something up with him. Icarus just even in the beginning, him showing up randomly when the Deviant was attacking Cersei and what's his name, Black Knight.
He came out of a bar.
Dane Whitman.
Yeah,
I was like, what?
Yeah, Whitman. Yeah,
I think it's kind of hinted at in his name to begin with, because the story of Icarus is not a good or a positive story. It's about somebody who flew too close to the sun, and their wings collapsed and they fall. They had a big fall from grace, and a lot of this is based in a lot of older mythology. So I think even having the name be Icarus kind of indicates from the beginning that this character is going to have some kind of great fall, that he's not this perfect hero, because in mythology, that's not what Icarus is.
Now I was going to say, and how ironic how it ends, right?
Yeah.
I know, flying too close to the sun. Okay, that reminded me way too much of Superman. Superman flies into the sun. He does that.
Superman.
Yeah, also
and
Superman.
not only that, that was what I was gonna mention earlier when we can't forget that we got our first Superman, MCU Superman, bro. That reminded me of how Justice League was, where everyone was going up against Superman. I was like, dang, dog, like it has its little similarities, but I think it was just paying an homage to Superman. But I was like, they didn't need to do it, but.
I mean, here's the thing, and I'm not saying this just as a DC fan, although I'm probably going to come across as a fanboy in this comment. DC it was around before Marvel, and Stan Lee has spoken about in interviews how he was a fan of DC Comics and he took some kind of influence into it. So I don't think it's inappropriate that they would have a little bit of they make it maybe a little too obvious, the fact that the kid in the movie thinks he's Superman, and they even make a joke and call him Clark, and then he starts flying really close to the sun like Superman. Like you could see heavy, maybe a little too much, but I don't know, maybe as a DC fan I kind of appreciated that the DC exists in this universe. It's confirmed that it exists as a fictional entity, the way it exists in our world, that people in these movies probably go watch DC Comics films. But
and Chloe Zhao didn't shy away from that Superman comparison, and that's exactly what they were going for.
She paid that homage. She said, "We know who this character is portraying. We know everything he could do: fly, laser beams. We just haven't seen him do cold wind, air through, his breath, whatever. But it's basically paying an homage to Superman. So I love that because he's one of my favorite superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
But,
getting back to that, what criticisms or shortcomings did you feel that this film had?
I could kind of see where you're coming from, where they could cut out some of the world stuff, like the background. The thing is, this would be a challenge for me because I've edited stuff before, what to edit out, because a lot of it's very interesting and important. It's just it's hard for me to know what would have to be cut out, because there's occasionally where I felt like the pace could have been a little bit quicker. But at the same time, some of that stuff was kind of important in terms of like characterization and world building. It's hard to know what could have been cut out of this movie, or if maybe it could have been edited slightly different to jack up the pace. And I think occasionally some of the humor doesn't work for me.
That's true. Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say. I think some of I actually thought the pacing was fine, but like I said, I was really interested in learning more about the Eternals and the world, especially since I haven't read the comics. Mm-hmm. But when it came to the comedic breaks, I think that's where it lacked. When, especially with the MCU, like ever since Avengers, you've had these awesome comedic breaks in tension, and they really didn't hit the mark with Eternals. I think they tried to do a lot of it with Kingo, with him being like the actor, and then the like he's filming a documentary, and with his I forgot the name of his assistant. Yeah. But I think that was probably the funniest part of the film, the assistant. Yeah. Everything else, even their like almost like family dichotomy wasn't really too believable. No, it felt almost forced.
You know what? That's the thing. Here's okay. Maybe you've actually pinpointed something that now I could see a little bit more clearly. All right. The flaw isn't that they have too much world building, like individually. I think the flaw is that you don't see how they relate to each other enough. You see how they are in their own world, in their own sphere, and you can kind of understand them as individuals. But it's kind of hard to understand their family dynamic because I don't think enough time is sold between them. And I think some of the times when they do try to like mix it up, there's too much humor. And I like Kumail Nanjiani. I really dig that guy. He's funny. He's cool. But like, I felt like they over relied on the comedic.
Yeah, they did.
Like the fact that Kumail Nanjiani is mostly a comedian. I think they played the comedy up a little bit too much in his character, where occasionally it was like, all right, enough with the goofing around, and like I could have done with a little bit less. Not to delete it altogether. I think that's probably an important part of the character, but it's a little, the humor is a little bit too much. Yeah. And I don't think we got to see enough of a family dynamic.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like a little bit of that was done on purpose because obviously, I do agree with y'all. They did kind of overdo it with the comedic, or they tried too hard. Yeah. But I don't question the chemistry because obviously they're made. Mm-hmm. Their memories are erased, everything. They're not really they really don't have chemistry. That's what I said. They only had that real chemistry when they're fighting. It's like that's the only chemistry they kept in their mind. We're like, when we're fighting, we work as a team. Mm-hmm, but then as individuals, it's like there's no chemistry. You could tell they have a little bit of love for each other and all that, but like chemistry wise, when it comes to comedic aspect, I feel like it was done on purpose. Where like it's like there is no chemistry there, and obviously it saves it in the story in itself. Mm-hmm. They don't have their memories. They're basic.
Yeah, I think some of the problem was, I mean, he says that there is chemistry, and I did see a lot of chemistry, especially between like Thena and Gilgamesh. Mm-hmm. Very believable. Almost like the older brother role. Sure. Like that, I felt that like because I have a younger sister, and his role is like I'm protecting her. I was like, okay, that was really cool. I felt like that was
yeah. Like I felt like they were more than brother and sister though.
I don't think so. I don't think they just like paired them off and like this is a couple, because they had that with Druig and Makari also, right? Where they're like that was more of a clear they like each other. But I felt like Gilgamesh and Thena was more of a no, your family, I'm protecting you.
Yeah, but that warrior bond.
Yeah, but when it came to like
didn't admit his feelings.
Yeah. But when it came to like Kingo and Icarus, like where Kingo's like, I will go to the ends of the world for you, I didn't believe it. I really didn't believe when he said that to
Mm.
Icarus. That felt forced.
But
And I
then
was like, okay,
but then Icarus said the same thing to Ajax.
exactly, yeah,
Well, that was supposed to be the connection there, and that's why he had the reaction he did. I think
yeah,
just one of the main issues is just what I had said from the very beginning. Like, this is cool. This is a great cast. We're doing the Eternals. There's going to be a lot of diversity, and this is going to be something that's going to be very different from a standard MCU film. But my question is, what about the characterization? What about the dynamics and the interpersonal communication between these characters? How are they going to establish that with all the star power and all that time that they have to establish all of that? But then they have to make sure that they're getting into the plot with the Deviants and the Celestials.
yeah.
I truly just felt like that was going to be a real task for anybody involved. And it's not like something with Guardians to where you have 4 of them to focus on, but then you have your lead in Star-Lord to be the one that you kind of focus and hone in a little bit more on and kind of understanding where he's coming from and his thought process. It was meant to be Cersei was supposed to be the lead, and that's how Kevin Feige had described it from the very beginning. But I truly felt like that wasn't earned, her taking Ajax's place, to be completely honest with you.
That's the whole point, though, right? She didn't feel like it was earned either.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that it makes sense from a storytelling point, but I think the movie could have worked harder to like sell that she's Zazie. I think the story makes sense. It's gonna sound weird because like maybe this needed to be a little bit longer, because now I'm thinking about all the things that you listed off, Nick, about what this movie is trying to do. I know 2 hours and 37 minutes is a long runtime. That's still a short runtime in terms of selling the world of each individual character, selling their interpersonal dynamics, building up the plot and the action at the same time, and ending with the kind of big spectacle. I feel like it is kind of a big thing. It's a lot to ask. It's not that not be a task. Like, it might be served a little bit better by a miniseries. The concept, yes,
exactly.
So I could kind of see that. I think story-wise, it does make sense. I think they maybe could have just worked harder to sell some of the interpersonal relationships. Like when you were talking of Athena and Gilgamesh, that makes sense. But I just felt like as a whole, we needed to see more interaction with them and see how they get along with each other. And instead of just hinting at it, kind of like hint at like Kingo and Icarus having kind of like not like
brotherly kind of bond, or
kind of a brotherly kind of bond, but they didn't really sell it enough. The kind of rivalry between Druid and Icarus. I just felt like we needed a little bit more of that. So it might have been that this maybe if 2.5 hours is this might be too much story for 2.5 hours.
For all these characters and all that. And it's just so much exposition. I want to say this is probably like 70% exposition, which is just once you become, when things have to drag on so long, you just become, oh, great, here we go. Another exposition scene. Or now they got to talk to the Celestial and find out what the plot is exactly going to be, and find out that what they thought was to be true was not true. And they were on Earth for a specific purpose. But I also think just some things kind of don't really make sense in the grand scheme of things. Like with the whole, why didn't they stop Thanos? Well, you come to find out Thanos wiped out half of life in the universe, half of the sentient life. So obviously that was also Earth involved, but they needed as many people as possible on Earth, so that way that the Celestial could be born quicker. So I'm like, wait a minute, now Thanos wiped out half the world. It's going to take even longer for them to repopulate the Earth. Like, wouldn't that have helped if they stepped in to help Thanos? Wouldn't that something? I mean, they didn't know exactly about that, but wouldn't the Celestials be like, hey, make sure you guys should help fight Thanos? Like, I just feel like some things kind of didn't really make sense in that grand scope of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I mean, here's another thing. I kind of feel like I think that I like when movies go for really big ideas, or they go for something as big and unique and as ambitious as this. And even if the movie doesn't it doesn't always fulfill in terms of the execution, I'm still glad it was made, because I'd rather see something, take risks and, try something different and maybe not be 100% successful, than just being good at just repeating the same thing again, or just
being very informative. And I think that's the thing too. While my take on this movie isn't 100% positive, and I would say maybe is even half that, I still appreciate the fact that they were taking that risk and they were trying to do something different, because that seems to be the common thread amongst people who criticize these movies and criticize the MCU for this is that, oh, Black Widow felt very formulaic. It didn't take enough risk. It was by the numbers. But, oh, the Eternals, it was so different from the MCU. It was so different from the formula, so we didn't like that. I felt like that's just on one hand. It's just like what exactly is it that people want? Like,
I think the higher you aim, though, like the more ambitious you become, the more you open yourself up to certain kinds of failures. I think it's harder to fail.
Like Icarus.
Yeah, like Icarus. So even the flaws of this movie are almost self-reflective because they kind of reflect Icarus himself as a character.
Yeah,
so
they try to do way too much.
Yeah, they're trying to do too much. But
exactly.
Hey, I still appreciated that that they did what they did, that they tried.
Exactly.
And even if not all of it successful, enough of it was successful that I still enjoyed it and I still liked what they were going for, and I really just like the concept behind this movie, and I really love the ideas that they're wrestling with.
Exactly.
In this film.
So fun fact too keep going, Eric.
I was
gonna talk about the end.
Yeah, I think also because and this might segue into what you're going to talk about. I think the Eternals, again, is such a big idea. You have to do world building. You have to introduce a whole cast of new characters, and it's a lot to do. It's not like Guardians of the Galaxy where you have like set characters and this is their personalities and this is how they interact with each other. There's a whole nother world behind this that they had to create, and I think that was the problem. But I also think that especially when you're looking at the end of the movie, the end credits, the after credit scenes, and where they're going with that, maybe if we get an Eternals 2 or whatever else comes after that we have the Eternals in, it might make this movie make more sense. And in the grand scheme of things, this movie might end up being better just over time.
Here's the thing. I still think that people should check it out and give it a chance, only because I want to see more superhero movies like try this level of ambition. I want to see a little bit more of this. So I still say it's very well worth seeing. It's very worth seeing on a big screen. I mean, to be honest, that's probably the best way to see it.
Yeah.
And overall, I would still recommend this to most people. I think it's worth checking out. It's just to be aware that a lot of this is heavy drama, and it's not just it's not just superhero action. A lot of it's wrestling with big ideas.
Definitely. And how cool is it that we got Star Fox, the brother of Thanos, in that post-credit scene, and them setting up the future with that? How even though I don't really care much for Harry Styles and never thought of him as an actor, it was cool to see. What do you guys think about that?
Did you not see Harry Styles in Dunkirk?
He was in Dunkirk?
Dude, he was so good. He played that role really well. Yeah.
No, I didn't. I didn't even see Dunkirk, honestly. I didn't know that he was in it.
Oh, yeah. It was an amazing movie. But yeah, he did that really well.
I'll have to check it out. But what do you guys think about what they're setting up and for the future and all that?
I think it makes a lot of sense.
I think it makes sense. I'm pretty excited. I mean, it shows that there's a lot of story left in this universe, because it felt like a lot of with like Avengers Endgame felt like the ending of something really, really massive and huge, and something that's been built up over a decade. Like after that, it's just like, where do you go from there? Like you ended the world. Like you didn't end the world, but you got rid of half the population. You brought it back. You like averted genocide. Where like it's hard to say where you're going to go from there, but I think it shows that there's still a lot more story left in the universe to tell.
Definitely.
I think adding Star Fox, it might kind of push the Eternals more into like Guardians of the Galaxy territory, as far as like here's the universe and because Star Fox he's funny, like he's a funny character. In the
obviously, we got little hints of that.
Yeah, we got Pip the Troll that came in with him.
That was cool.
Who was voiced by Patton Oswalt. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was really interesting. When he came up, I was like, what the heck's this dude doing? And then he's introducing Star Fox, which is cool. I don't know if he's gonna go by the name Star Fox, just because that's a whole Nintendo copyright thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm assuming. That they might just call him Arrows, because so that was pretty cool. Obviously, hinting at what's to come for the Eternals in the future with that, and that's gonna be cool to see. And I don't know if you guys knew, but the voice in the other post-credit scene with Dane Whitman hinting at Black Knight. Did you guys know who that was?
So I originally listened to it, and in my head I thought, oh, it's Samuel L. Jackson, just because he appeared in the early ones, right? Like Samuel L. Jackson. Then I was thinking maybe it's the Watcher, because that'd be really cool. We just finished the What If series, but yeah, I who it actually was, I never really thought about it until I looked it up. I was like, that was really cool.
It's the voice was Mahershala Ali as Blade.
Yeah,
really
talking to Dane Whitman. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, the one. So
and in the comics, I think it was hinting that they had some kind of connection. I want to say they were part of some organization.
I mean,
together,
Black Knight fights
so they were
vampires.
Yeah,
yeah. So that's probably why he. And if you don't know the history of the Black Knight, the one right before this version was evil. He was a villain.
His uncle.
His uncle, yeah.
Nathan Garrett, I want to say his uncle.
So he probably had some backstory. That Black Knight, that version probably has some backstory with vampires, and the vampires that we know now in the MCU are coming with Blade. So I mean, the fact that it was his voice and we're getting Blade a lot sooner than we expected is really cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So and yeah, I mean, seeing Kit Harington as Black Knight, I kind of like that they didn't focus on him too much. They did focus on the relationship with Cersei.
It's a good thing they didn't focus on him too much, because this movie already had trouble focusing on everything else it was trying to do to try to develop that. It would have been too much.
Yeah, I think they did enough with just the after credits for him, and I think that worked. Because you have that almost sense of like hesitance to pick up the blade, so you don't know what he's already researched, what he already knows about the ebony blade or the ebony sword, and what he's going to do with it. But it's obviously he's gone to that length because Cersei was taken away, so he's gonna do something about it.
Exactly.
So that's why he starts going down that path. And yeah, so if we get Blade sooner than I don't know, if we get Black Knight in the next Blade movie, that'd be really cool too to see, like him fighting alongside Blade. I don't think that's something necessarily we saw in the comics, but nonetheless, why not?
I mean, him and Dane, they were like colleagues in an organization before, so like that's also what it was hinting at, that kind of partnership. But I think it's pretty cool because this version, Dane Whitman was obviously like it is cool in that sense. Like when his uncle actually went to him dying and told him that how of his regrets and his transgressions, and to right his wrongs and to make amends for the name of Black Knight. So that's when he ended up joining the Avengers. Obviously, there was a time where they didn't trust him because of the association with the name Black Knight. So that's also pretty cool that we had that redemption arc already. Obviously, so we don't exactly know this version if the Black Knight has existed. They're probably going to say his ancestor Peter of Scandinavia, who was serving under King Arthur, and that the ebony blade was made by Merlin. So I feel like there's going to be a lot of history with that, and it's just cool to see all those things come full circle. And we'll definitely just wait till how all that happens and plays out. But the fact that you had Jon Snow in this, I already knew that he was going to be around for the long run.
Yeah, you don't bring in Jon Snow just to have him as a side love.
It's funny too, because like when he appeared on screen, there were people who didn't know that Kit Harington was in this movie, and they were just like, Jon Snow. You literally had like 30 people in the audience like all scream out Jon Snow. So
that's funny.
Yeah, definitely. But well, with all that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you guys so much. Hey, make sure you guys check out the Eternals. Like I said, even though I had my gripes with it, definitely a film I highly, highly recommend.
Another thing too, I want audiences to see it. I for all the flaws, I really like what Chloe Zhao was going for and what she was doing with it. I would hate to see her get removed and replaced by somebody just to, like, I don't know, appease people about their complaints for this movie. I'm like, no, let's let her vision play out and see where it goes before.
Yeah.
There's already talk about people wanting to replace. I'm like, no, let's not do that. Let's not try to replace everybody every time somebody tries to something different, and it's not 100%. I think it's most successful. So
yeah.
I want to.
And like you said, Jimmy, I do appreciate that fact. Even though it felt like a little bit more of a miss for me, I do appreciate that fact that they took those risks and that they were trying to do something different. And it really went to show that because they got Chloe Zhao, which is probably one of the better directors and a little bit of the more memorable directors they've had in the MCU. So I do appreciate the fact that they were trying to do something different and not break away from formulaic.
I think and I think that should be encouraged to try more ideas like this. Is why I say go out and see it. Don't let it. I mean, it's not going to bomb regardless. It's already made.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
Well, Thank you guys so much. We'll see you on next episode. Take it easy.
See ya.